Freedom of Information guidelines. It'll be posted on the Board of Regents website as well. Monica, when you join, if you could just let me know. Good morning, President Ojakian. Monica, have you joined us? Okay. We have President Ojakian on the line, and I show that we have 15 participants. What I'd like for the group to do is please send me an email indicating that you're on the call for attendance keeping purposes to make things a little bit easier without us having to go through an actual roll call. That would be helpful. Elena, I see that you're on the line. Tabitha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm on the line as well.
Great. Good morning. Thank you. The agenda was sent out, but I do think that President Ojakian wanted to give a few remarks and answer any questions that everyone had as per normal with our meetings when we have them at the system office. So with that being said, again, send me an email that you're participating in the meeting so Tabitha can comprise the minutes and then do the roll call and we'll be good to go. President Ojakian, do you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Angelica, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for, once again, the kind invitation to join your meeting. I wanted to just say a couple of things, and then, as always, I want to hear your comments and questions and concerns as we move forward. At the last board meeting, I did give a pretty comprehensive update on what we've been up to as a system, talked about sort of the challenges we've had and the incredible job that our faculty and staff and students have done in terms of transitioning to a fully online environment. Talked about how we were moving to a pass-fail system, both at the colleges and at the universities. Talked a little bit about the financial situation that we find ourselves in, and sort of the monetary loss we took in terms of refunds at the universities for room and board costs that had to be refunded appropriately to our students and their families. Talked a little bit about what we were focusing on in terms of our universities and colleges in terms of facilities, and mostly other universities in terms of support that we are giving to hospitals in the area by setting up a COVID-19 patient overflow space at Western and Southern, and now at Central, and the use of our dorms to house not only military personnel but also first responders, and at Central specifically, we're looking to house folks from UConn Health who are either COVID asymptomatic or COVID positive, or folks that just don't want to go home because they fear that they might have contracted the virus and want to be mindful of keeping their families safe. So I gave a full comprehensive briefing to the board last month. I want to thank, I don't know if Monica's on yet, but I want to thank Monica for her report on behalf of the Student Advisory Committee. It was extremely well received by the members of the board. And the one specific thing I wanted to bring up this morning, has to do with the money that has been given to us by the federal government on the CARES Act. You may recall that our system received $54 million under the Higher Education Stabilization Fund. 50% of that amount, or $14 million for the colleges and $13 million for the universities, is to go directly to emergency student financial aid. And we will be sending guidance out to students on that on the next day, or at least by Monday, I believe. The other 50% is to go directly to institutions to make institutions whole in terms of the expenses that they've had to incur as a result of COVID-19. Part of this I would envision, as we get more guidance, would be to make the universities, to give funding to the universities for the refunds that they had to give in terms of room and board. In terms of the student emergency fund piece, the original guidance that came from the Department of Education was extremely broad and gave institutions and systems a lot of flexibility in terms of how they would distribute the funds. We had initially put together a plan that would provide emergency assistance to every student that was in our colleges and universities, would have included undocumented students, and would have included students in non-credit programs where those non-credit programs met the needs of the community or the state, like in allied health areas. So we were ready to roll, and then we got additional guidance, which reversed the initial guidance and became far more restrictive on who we could provide the funding to. So we're regrouping. We're working with our federal delegation. I plan to send a letter to Secretary DeVos today or Monday, which showcases my displeasure at the reversal in guidance. If you look at the guidance as it currently is promulgated, 47% of our community college students would be ineligible for the fund. And that's not something that I plan to tolerate. So we are sending something to the Secretary, copying our federal delegation, and we'll have a revised plan for how we are going to distribute the first batch of the funding in hopes that the guidance will be changed, and then we'll be able to give funding to other students as we had originally planned. So more to say on that as we develop a letter to you all and to all students. But understand that I'm, not just going to sit idly by and let this guidance, which I believe is restrictive, go unchallenged. So, Angela, with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. I believe Monica's joined us as well.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. Good morning, President Ojekian. Thank you for that update.
You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. And thank you for your leadership in presenting the committee's report to the board. I don't know if you were on when I indicated that they were very impressed and pleased with the report that you gave. I think what they appreciate the most out of any committee, any advisory committee, any sort of board effort is that you not only identify issues, problems, and concerns, but are always willing to be part of the solution. And so for me and board members, thank you very much for that leadership.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Anyone have any questions with regard to what President Ojekian spoke about or anything of the like?
I have a comment.
In what school, please?
Hello? Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure you could hear me. This is Antonia from Housatonic Community College.
Go ahead.
Great.
All right. I just wanted to say thank you so much, President Ojekian. It really sounds like you're on the front lines for us, and that was just really comforting to hear. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's the right thing to do, and we're going to continue to advocate for all of our students. And I think the latest advice that we receive was very narrow-minded, and also did not recognize the diversity of the students that we serve. So I'm going to continue to be there, every step of the way. The other thing I will say is, now we're a part of, we've been all along a part of the governor's emergency response team, which is, how we became involved in sort of overflow capacity response that we may be called on to provide. But now we're also part of the governor's Reopen Connecticut team. And we'll be, looking, to this body as well as we try to develop plans system-wide for what a reopening might look like in the fall. As you know, we've put most of our courses online for the summer. We will reevaluate some of our allied health programs, I think by July 20th, to see if there's an opportunity to have, in face-to-face instruction on campus. That'll depend on the trajectory of the, of the virus and where we are at that point in time. But as a system and as community colleges, we are going to be working to develop a plan that we can present, to our constituents, but also to the governor on how we would look to reopen for the fall. So we will be looking for your participation as well, and thank you in advance for all you're going to be asked to do as we try to look at what are some of the possibilities and options for a safe and phased-in reopening in the fall.
I'm sure many students are looking forward to getting back to campus. So thank you for all your efforts in getting our campus open. Hopefully, hopefully we'll be the first to know since you're on the opening up Connecticut team. So that's exciting. So good luck with all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very, very welcome.
Good morning, President Ojakian, it's Elena. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to ask a question. If you could give more details on the, I believe you said 54 million that was given to the university system through the CARES Act, and how that money will be used.
Well, I think first of all, Elena, thank you for the question. In terms of the institutional funds, that guidance is still being, released, and we're still trying to assess, how that money will be distributed to institutions based on a formula. In terms of the student emergency financial assistance portion, we are, finalizing our plans for how to distribute, the funding. The guidance that most recently came out, which I am challenging, basically relied on FAFSA eligible students and those folks that had filled out a FAFSA and had their information verified. So in terms of our community colleges, 47% of our students would not be covered under this criteria, and I believe it's about 42% at the universities as well. So I think we'll be sending out some guidance later to institutions and to students, but I think we're going to hold some of the money back in the hopes that the guidance will change and we'll be able to give out the same equitable distribution to students that we had initially envisioned doing. We were not making differentiations between, FAFSA eligible, FAFSA certified. We were just basically going to give emergency assistance to all students. And so we're going to, I think, be distributing a portion of the money in accordance with the guidance we just received and holding some money back in the hopes that we'll be able to give emergency assistance to all students. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, then we can always give, another distribution of funds to the original students that will be getting the money.
And what would that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and would you speak about any of the lost revenues that the university system has faced and any additional expenses due to the coronavirus and what is being
Sure.
done against that?
Yeah, I mean, so there has been a significant impact. So, for example, as of the last report I received, and I'm just trying to pull that up now. In terms of room and board refunds, that amounted at the universities to $25.5 million. They also have incurred at least $5.5 million in other expenses, and we're keeping track at the direction of OPM because we think there might be the possibility of some federal reimbursements for some of these costs, since there have been a number of emergency declarations made. So we're keeping track of every dollar that we are spending. At the colleges we've given so far about $1 million in refunds, and that is primarily for classes that had to be canceled because they couldn't go online, or refunds to students who had, extraordinary difficulty, with the online platform, and campuses had the ability and the discretion to give, refunds to those students. At the colleges, also about $400,000 in expenses so far as a result of the virus. So we continue to monitor our, the expenses that we have, and continue to also look at, what are the possible, revenue declines that we may be experiencing in the fall, depending on how we, have to reopen, in a phased and a sort of safe environment. So we're looking at all of those things as we move forward, but keeping track of every penny that we spend.
I have two questions to add to that. So there's funding from the CARES Act for the institution itself, right? Not just the students. Is that correct?
Correct.
And would that cover these
Correct.
costs? Okay. And
Well,
also,
I mean, it would cover some of them. It would not cover all of the, for example, all of the refunds that we had to give at the universities for room and board.
okay, but it's not going to have as a big of an impact. It's going to decrease the blow, I guess, for the loss of revenues.
Yeah, I mean, it'll mitigate some of the costs, but it will clearly not make institutions whole. And we're hoping that either through some sort of additional federal recovery dollars or state recovery dollars that, we'll be able to sort of close that gap. But in many cases, I think, especially at the universities, they're going to have to go into their reserves to be able to balance their budgets.
And secondly, for the student funding from that CARES Act, how would that be distributed to students? And also thank you for wanting to make sure that all students receive those fundings.
I think so. We're in the process of developing sort of a letter that will go out to students from campuses and from myself with some procedures on how to do that. The easiest way to do it is if folks signed up for direct deposit, then we just put it in folks' accounts. So we'll be sort of sending around a way to do that. And if not, we'll have to mail checks directly to students.
Okay, wonderful. There is a separate question.
But we'll have more on that, either today or by Monday, and we'll make sure that we distribute that through Angelo to all of you. But we will also be getting a message to all students on how to apply for the funding and what steps we're going to be taking to make sure that all students at some point will be able to get some assistance.
Wonderful. And I have a question. This is regarding students who are graduating and leaving the system, who are not going to have a commencement ceremony or any type of celebration whatsoever from their colleges. And I know there's talks about some possible commencement, but you have thousands of students that are really losing out on the opportunity to not just walk, but participate in many events to celebrate their graduation. Is there anything on a system level to address these students?
Well, we're basically, leaving it to the campuses to make decisions on the best way to celebrate the accomplishments of their students. We had as we do every week, calls with campus leaders and presidents of all of the institutions to ask them to please, send us what they're thinking of doing, what they'd like to do. Some campuses are doing many things, to showcase the accomplishments. I think Eastern is considering doing a virtual commencement sometime in May. And so, we're going to be probably with the governor doing something system-wide in terms of recognizing graduates and, sending congratulatory messages, letters perhaps to all students. All of that is in the works right now, and we're just trying to sort of lock down a date by which we'll know who actually has completed, and we'll be eligible to, get the proper certification. So we're looking at doing a variety of things both at the local and the system level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, President. How are you?
Good. Who's this?
It's Kelly Parody from CCSU. How are you today, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I have two questions, sir, and I think we kind of already alluded to it. I just want to make sure I understood what we're talking about. One, I know that at our campus at CCSU, we already received back our room and board and our commuter meal plans and things like that. My one question, though, that we've all kind of been pondering is there any, with either this funding or an additional set of funding, of giving any of the tuition or fees back to the students as a whole, or is that a case-by-case basis like the other money being given around?
So in terms of tuition, I will say no, unless there's a presidential waiver that comes into, effect, because or class has been canceled, right? So if a class has been canceled, then in those cases, there is no online instruction, so students would be entitled to a refund. And I don't know of any courses that were, canceled outright. But there is a case-by-case, exemption that a university or a college, can give. And so that would all be handled at the campus level.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you, sir. And I do have one more question in terms of the veterans of our system. A lot of the veterans that go to school throughout the CSU system are using their post 9/11 GI Bill, which includes, if they're attending courses on campus, a full benefit for housing allowance. With the university for this semester, if you started online or if you started in the classroom, they still allotted us our full BAH or our full housing allotment. There's been talk of if all the classes go online, even through fall, as to what that would look like for the veteran students. So my question there is, when it's annotated in the system, if we have to go all online, what would that look like? Would we be able to know which classes typically would have been in the classroom Is there any type of way to see that information?
You know, that's a very, very good question, and one that I don't have an answer to right now. So we will look into that for you and make sure we have a response. There may be other folks that have you know, given this thought and have an answer. I just don't have it right now, but I'm happy to you know, get one to you.
Outstanding. Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
we'll look into
Yeah,
that.
we've been following along with what Veterans Affairs, like, you know, federal Veterans Affairs has been putting out. And a lot of it's
Right.
looking that they're going to treat a majority of the classes as if they were on campus. But I think a lot of it also has to do with how the schools put forward that information and how it goes into the system. So we're still waiting to kind of see what that looks like. And a lot of the exemptions are going through December of this year. So we're just trying to
and I think
get
that's
ahead of
one
it
of the
because I don't
things
want a bunch
that
of.
as we look now, you know, because we need to develop a plan, and we're working with each campus will be bringing forward a plan for how they would, you know, look to reopen. We've asked, and this was just yesterday, we had a call with the university presidents, and they're going to be conducting sort of information sessions on their campus in very short order, because the governor wants us to give some preliminary indication of what this might look like sooner rather than later, so we can make an overall plan and give information to the public at large. We've told presidents we want student input into how this would look. I think the veterans issue would be one that would be perfectly appropriate, you know, to bring up. And I think, you know, this is really uncharted territory. So, you know, what would a safe reopening look like, right? And so, you know, we don't know where we'll be in the middle of summer in terms of our, you know, the status of the virus. We don't know, for example, right now what safe means. Right? Does it mean, are there certain disciplines where classes would continue fully online? And are there others that we would encourage folks to take on campus, but in a very still social distancing format? What would dorms look like in the new sort of, you know, pre-vaccine era? You know, would everything have to be a single room, for example? I mean, these are all issues that, you know, that we need to start to explore immediately and have some sort of recommendations to the governor in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I definitely see that to be sort of something weighing on the students' minds on our campus, considering a majority of our dorms have been turned over to the state.
Yes.
And a lot of the students' stuff was packed up by FEMA, and they still don't have their stuff.
No, I know that. We're working on that with President Tora, believe me. But the other
yes, sir.
issue,
She's been very, very good.
Yes. But the other, and so because the first priority, because your campus had to close down suddenly because there was a suspected case. And
yes,
so
sir.
because that happened, you know, you didn't have the day or so that other campuses had to really go in and, you know, and figure out, you know, what you needed to, you know, to retrieve. The other issue that students, I think, will, and many of you will be thinking about is, you know, even if our campus is reopened in some way, you know, part of why students go to universities and colleges for the overall experience. And if I have to, be in a class, you know, with like 10 students at a time, if I'm not able to, you know, go to the cafeteria when I want and have, you know, lunch or dinner with my friend, you know, there's an experience that goes along with the educational component. And so that's part of what we have to consider when we're, you know, when we're looking at how we're going to reopen in the fall in a, you know, in a safe way, because the safety is the most important thing. You know, I keep telling, you know, from my 89-year-old mother to my 15-year-old grandson, I'm like, we will get back to a certain sense of normalcy at some point, but we have to just make sure we're all healthy, right? We don't want to take any unnecessary risks that would expose us to the virus and the possible complications.
President Ojakian, as a member of the Opening Up Connecticut team, and speaking for our 17 institutions, I'm just wondering, the virus, the lockdown, the stay-at-homes were really a way to and I know this is not going to be like any medical reasoning, but you are on the team, so I'm just wondering if this is something that you guys talked about, but the flattening of the curve and the increase of cases, since that has slowed down and now everyone has all their medical protective equipment and, including people now everywhere, you're required to wear masks. Doesn't that have an effect on getting back out into the community? Because, now we actually we're all set up. There's hospital testing areas everywhere. And, it seems like we can handle the healthcare system can handle any that surge, right? Is what they referred to it. But wouldn't we be encouraged to get back into into our campuses and into our communities and back to, moving forward with our lives again, with now that now that the healthcare system is prepared for anything?
Well, I think we'll be in a much better position, and I think we're making a lot of progress in terms of how we can start to move back to a sort of normal lifetime again. I will say a couple things. I still don't think that testing is adequate for everybody. We're making a lot of progress, but not everybody has access to to testing, and not everybody has access to the PPE that's going to be needed to go back either. I mean, I may have a mask, you may have a mask, a lot of people we know may have a mask, but there's a lot of people who don't have that kind of equipment currently, and most of those folks are concentrated in urban centers where they're living close together to begin with, and so I think the governor wants to do this in a safe way, in a phased-in way, because the worst thing that could happen, I think, is that you say, okay, we're kind of ready to go back, and then everybody forgets where we've been, right? And so everybody continues to flood into, so everything opens at once. So gyms open all at once, restaurants open all at once, and things are just, sort of back to normal. So I think what the governor is looking to do is take a very sort of phased-in approach to opening up. He's announced, I think, that we will start to see, in early June, a lot of things start to open up, and I think you'll see more of a phased-in approach where we can make sure that everybody has the equipment, that they need. I mean, and I would imagine, well, even if we go back in the fall and have some, on-campus presence, that presence is going to have to be in conjunction with personal protective equipment and the continuing of some form of social distancing. Until we have a vaccine, I will say that. Until we have a vaccine.
Perhaps we use that hybrid where you have the class full of 30 students. Say 15 of them meet on the Tuesday. Everyone else gets to video in, and then vice versa on the Thursday.
Well, that's what we're looking to do. That's what we're looking to do.
That's awesome.
And we may have to be somewhat creative about when classes are offered. Right? I mean, I know there's a traditional, time and day where certain classes are offered and where, faculty prefer to teach, but we may have to be more creative about, the actual class scheduling to make sure everybody can take the same classes and we don't have everybody on campus, at once? And, for example, are there opportunities for students who are not comfortable going to the class, continuing to take the class fully online, or being able to be part of the class virtually? So all of these things need to be considered as we put forth a plan for somewhat of a safe and phased-in reopening in the fall.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you leading from the top and taking the time to explain all of these things going on to us so we can bring that information back to our fellow students.
Anytime, and that's what I'm here for, is to be a resource, for all of you, and that's why Angelo is sort of my point on these issues as they arise on a day-to-day basis. Continue to feed them to Angelo, and know that we have a call every morning with my senior response team, and your issues are brought up every single day. So please continue to feed your questions and your concerns and your comments through Angelo, and rest assured that they'll be addressed.
Thank you so
Well,
much,
thank
President Ojekian. Yeah, we have everything so far has been addressed, and we really do appreciate all the efforts from yourself and your team. It's been amazing. I actually spoke with the faculty committee and let them know that the CSU system has been helpful in every step of the way for students, and so we just really want to say thank you very much for all your efforts.
And now, thank you all for your leadership and for, your willingness to take on, this role and really advise the board on the things that matter to students. And it's never been clearer the importance of this group and your leadership than at this time during this pandemic. So just please, all of you, stay healthy and stay safe, and we'll be in touch. I'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
You too,
Bye-bye.
sir. Be safe.
Bye.
All right, thank you. That was great. So Angelo, you're gonna have some remarks and comments about coronavirus for the system, please.
I think President Ojekian did a good job overviewing it. I'm happy to answer any questions with regard to pass-fail or coronavirus that might be coming from the group, if there are any, but I think he did a good job giving an overview. And the pass-fail policy, actually, the procedure went out this week, so hopefully everybody had a chance to see that.
Hi, Angelo. This is Sherry from Miss Nuntuck. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I have a question, Angelo, from several of our faculty members that have been working with students that, since going off campus, continue to have problems with internet and technology. And the faculty members are wondering if the incomplete period, if it has been discussed that the incomplete period for this semester could be extended.
That's for this semester you're asking? Okay.
Yes. So what they're asking is, I have several members that are acknowledging the fact that there are many students on our campus that until they get back on campus, they probably won't be able to succeed in their particular courses because they can't utilize the on-site tutoring and the technology on-site. So the question would be, could the incomplete period be extended through a time when students do have access to the campus?
Got disconnected.
Okay, Angelo, she's asking if there can be an incomplete for this semester for students for an extended period of time until students are able to return to campus.
A local decision at the college. Some of our schools have worked with students with regard to that, but that should go through the academic dean for consideration. And then if we need to revise whatever the board policy is, we can look into doing that. Sherry, has there been conversation with the academic dean? Hello?
Sherry, are you still there? We'll have to follow up on email then. I do know that was that was brought up by students and faculty as well, wondering if because we have extended the incompletes from last semester, since the due date was during the transition, we extended that to the end of this semester. And I know that there were some questions on if we should also do that for this current semester, extending it into the end of next semester.
So yeah, my recommendation is work with the academic dean, and then if there's no leeway there, definitely loop me in. But a lot of these decisions and things should be decided, at least initially, at the local campus level.
Okay.
And just before I forget, if you are on the call, if you can send me an email so Tabitha can do the minutes and keep account of who's here, just send me an email and we'll add you to the agenda. Please.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other questions on pass-fail, the pass-fail procedure? Okay, wonderful. And so President Ojakian also spoke about federal funding for students, and so I don't know if there's any other questions about that, but it seems like he went in depth on that. So we're gonna move right along then. So agenda item number 6 is we're going to, I sent out an email with our bylaws, finally, and I highlighted the election section because we do want to have elections for next academic year. As of right now, there's a lot going on at the system office, and we do want to have an interim selection made just so that we can start training and passing on, getting that person abreast of all the issues. So we are taking letters of intention, and I have received some. So please be sure to send those letters of intention to myself or to Angelo. And also, we do want to take a look at our bylaws and possibly make an adjustment for this situation as far as putting in an interim role as opposed to having an election. So we will do that.
Just a few notes on that, Monica, and thank you for teeing that up. It does need to be, the chair needs to be someone from a university this year, from one of our 4 state universities. So just keep that in mind for people that might be interested in running. The vice chair can be from the community colleges, but it does need to alternate every 2 years, and this is the end of that term. With that being said, our bylaws, as you mentioned, don't have provisions for interim leadership. I'm working with our general counsel to see how we can get somebody in place, since Monica, Elena, and Tabitha are all graduating. They are staying on till the last board meeting, which is May 14th. But after that, we're going to figure out what the plan is moving forward. So the other issue that complicates things is that because our campuses have been closed, there hasn't been elections at the local SGAs for next semester, at least at all the schools. So we want to make sure that we give people an ample opportunity to run for these leadership positions. They can't do that unless we know who the leadership is locally at the campuses once those local SGA elections occur. So kind of a lot of moving parts, which is why we probably want to do an interim appointment for now, once I get the permission to do that.
I do have a question in regards to the positions. And I understand that it has to be a university student this year, but my one question is, does it have to be the president or the vice president of your SGA, or can it be any student on the SGA or Senate?
Local SGA appoints whoever the representative is to the student advisory committee. In some cases, that's the president or the vice president. Sometimes that's somebody that's elected. Sometimes it's somebody else that's appointed, but we leave that to the local SGAs to determine.
But it is
Okay,
for
so it's as long as
It's for
That's
any
what I
student.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah, as long as the SGA appoints that person as the SAC representative for their campus, but it could be, and that student, that appointment does not have to be of an SGA. It tends to be, but it can be any student who's interested in that position.
Outstanding. Thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding an interim role for the summer and going forward until SGAs are in place so that there can be an election next fall semester? And Angela, do you have any suggestions on how we would, would we have one meeting left? Is that the meeting where we're going to look at the bylaws and possibly add in an exception for interim?
I'll have more on that next week. I'm not 100% sure yet. We might need to be able to do it without a revision of the bylaws. I just need to get an interpretation of them.
Okay, thank you. And are there any other questions or concerns from the committee?
I have a question. It's Tabitha from Naugatuck Valley. This doesn't have to do with the bylaws. Are we moving into open discussion?
Yes.
So recently, I know that this has come from the system office, but it's about the usage of Zoom and how we're supposed to start using Microsoft Teams or WebEx, but a lot of students have found that Microsoft Teams and WebEx have been difficult, and a lot of their professors are still using Zoom. And as far as our student government, we're using Microsoft Teams, but have found it difficult, and a lot of our students, coming from community college and everybody's traditional age, so they find Teams to be more difficult than Zoom, whereas you just click a link. And one thing that was brought up was that we're not discussing anything sensitive within the SGA meeting, and we're wondering if it's possible if we could still use Zoom versus Microsoft Teams.
So Zoom, from what I understand, it only allows for 40-minute meetings when you have 3 or more participants. Otherwise, you have to pay for it. So, I mean, I guess if your meetings are going shorter than 40 minutes and you want to use it, we're not saying that we're saying the system office has said for administrative staff, we have to use WebEx and Teams. Faculty have the ability to be flexible if they're using Zoom, but I mean, there are fees that would be additionally incurred if you use Zoom, and there's also some security issues with Zoom, as you might have seen on the news. I found Microsoft Teams to be very easy. I'm not sure why there's some challenges with it. Is it a training issue that people need to be trained on how to use it?
I think it's not, because we have offered trainings at Naugatuck Valley and people have taken them. It's just a matter of sometimes getting on the call can be difficult. There's a lot of lag and feedback. We're often talking over each other. We don't have the ability to vote or do anything like that that we found really difficult.
I think it's a local campus decision. I don't want to weigh in too much. I'm not sure what the leadership at Naugatuck Valley has said, but if voting is an issue, that should be addressed for sure. But I mean, Zoom starts getting pretty expensive if you have to pay for it. So, obviously the system is already paying for Teams and WebEx. Maybe trying to use WebEx instead of Teams.
We haven't tried it. Our SGA meetings have not been 40 minutes or longer. What a lot of professors are doing, if their classes run longer than 40 minutes, you can leave the meeting and then rejoin the same link and you get another 40 minutes.
I know that. Good to know. Tabitha, why don't you talk to Sarah Gager and then loop me in and then let me know what she says. I don't want to override local decisions.
This is Kevin from QVCC. I just wanted to toss in there, just because we've been using Teams pretty extensively. Because Teams connects with all of the Microsoft services, you can still hold votes through Teams in the chat using Microsoft Forms. It gives you like an option as like one of the other, like one of the buttons. It's like an app that like tags in. It lets you like list all the options people can vote, and then the person who initiated the poll can check it from Forms.
Great, thank you.
Kevin, maybe you could get with Tabitha and talk with her about maybe how to do that, because Teams is supported by the colleges, universities, and the system office. So if there are technical issues, at least you guys will be able to get tech support and help through the departments that do the IT stuff. There's no support for Zoom as it relates to our system.
I know that what we've been doing in our
absolutely.
SGA.
Tabitha, if you want to find me, I'm in the email change. It's kdavis@qvcc.edu.
Okay, thank you.
I know for our campus, when we've been using Microsoft Teams, we've held the vote inside of the chat. Like you'll put the vote up and then count the chat, like how many people, because then you have the person's name next to what their vote was. That seems to work pretty well for us.
Right, but we just, for certain things that we vote on, it would be more of a silent ballot. So the issue was that we didn't want everyone to see everybody else's name within the vote. That is where.
To that more. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, so are there any other discussions? I don't have anything either, Angelo, so it looks like we can motion to adjourn at this point.
I see Elena motioned.
Okay.
We'll let people enjoy their Friday, but as President Ojakian said, we're available if any issues or concerns come up. But I hope everyone has as good of a weekend as we can possibly have, and hopefully we get some nice weather.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.
Thank you.